back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection Deluxe Class Blurr. Before we take a look, let's take a look at the packaging. So of course, for the packaging here, we have a nice open view of Blurr and his packaging. Of course, we have a nice artwork of him in his robot mode with his blaster in his other hand, looking very cool. We have the Legacy logo, Blurr, Transformers, of course, the Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection logo. Up here, we have a nice product shot of him in his really cool race car mode and an artwork shot of him in his race car mode. And on the side here, of course, a continuation of the robot mode. And on this side here, of course, he transforms in 15 steps, a picture of his robot and alt mode. And for the final side, here's another artwork of him in his really cool looking robot mode. That's pretty much it for the packaging. Let's now get into the Blurr in his really cool looking hovercraft race car mode. Let's take a look at the details. Starting at the very front, we have some nice blue for these pointed sections, some black for these wheels, and some nice whitish blue for this front section as well. Some nice transparent blue plastic for this windscreen, and some white for the area around it. Also a nice red for the center for that off symbol. Getting to the side, some nice dark blue right there. And of course, they actually sculpted in his seat, which is super nice because there's no figure that's, of course, small enough to actually fit in there, but I'm really glad they still included it. Of course, in this back section, we have this nice fin there, done in that dark blue, some white, some silver, and these whole rocket booster sections look pretty cool. And if you wanted to, you could actually plug some blaster pieces in there so you can shoot off into battle, and I've actually done it. It looks super cool. On the bottom, overall, pretty clean. Unfortunately, of course, this figure does not come with any wheels on the bottom, but it's actually no surprise, because if you're familiar with Blurr in the old 86 movie and cartoon, he never really drove like a car. He really just kind of hovered above the ground, like, of course, a hovercraft. So I think they did a pretty good job recreating that in this version here. Let's now get into the accessories. So he does come with the same exact two ones that came with the 86 and Shatterglass, the blaster, which I'll give a closer look, and the robot mode. I'm just going to show you the storage now. So, of course, there is a tab and a slot, and this will just tab right into place just like that. And overall, that looks pretty cool. He also does come with the welder tool, so there is slots there, and of course there is tabs here, and you're just going to tab this into place just like that. And there we have both accessories stored like that. And of course, it does add quite a bit of length to the front of the vehicle, and overall looks very, very cool. Let's now get in one quick comparison with his mold mates. Here he is with Shatterglass Blurr. And of course, mold-wise, there's actually quite a few similarities. Of course, accessories are the exact same, just a different color. Also, this entire back fin piece and leg section, of course, is the exact same, as well as the whole seat and windscreen is the exact same. Getting to the differences, there is actually quite a few. If you look at this whole front car piece right here and on the sides, it is pretty much completely different in sculpt. It doesn't have any of those wheel pieces and really any of this sculpting. Also, if you go to the back, the whole booster section is a little bit similar with the circular sections, but it's actually quite a bit chunkier on this one than that one, much more slender on the Shatterglass one. Overall, looking very cool. And of course, the difference between the Shatterglass Blurr and the 86 Studio Series 1, the only difference between them is this one has a different head sculpt, but everything else-wise, molds, of course, for this mode and the robot mode, there's no other difference. And now for one last Blurr comparison. I don't have the 86 one, but I do have the Titans Return Blurr. I thought I'd just get one last Blurr comparison just for the heck of it. Of course, mold-wise, they're completely different. This one's from like 6 or 5 years ago, so no similarities whatsoever. But of course, design-wise, they both have that really slender, sleek hovercraft design. What's actually interesting is there's actual rolling wheels on the Titans Return ones. That's kind of interesting to see. This one have it, but those do not. That's pretty much it for this vehicle mode, and let's now get into the transformation into the robot mode. Now get a transformation into the robot mode, so what you're going to do is flip in this panel just like that. You can then separate the entire arm from the main body of the vehicle, so just untab that, and how this is there is a tab, and there is a slot, and there is a tab, and there is a slot, and there is a tab there, and there is a slot there. And of course, do the same thing for the other arm, just wiggle those off just like that. And then what you're going to want to do is go to the bottom, and you're going to disconnect the foot from this panel here. So just untab those, and then you can flip these out like that. And of course, there is a slot there, and there is a tab on the inside of the foot. And then what you can do is hinge the whole arm up, rotate this down, and move it out. Same thing, of course, for the other arm. Rotate this down, hinge it out. And then what you're going to want to do is grab this whole section here, rotate this around, and then fold this back. And there we have one of the arms all complete. So just rotate this around, fold this back, and there we have both arms fully complete. Then we can go to the legs. Just make sure these are out as much as you can, because you do need quite a bit of clearance for the leg transformation. So just separate the legs like this, and then you can fold these out, and then you can separate them in half. We can then flip to the fronts, and then you're going to flip in the fin, close this up, fold down the foot, same thing on the other side, fold down the foot, and then we can just finish up some minor details. So you're going to go back here, get this whole section, and it's just going to go into that groove piece right there, so just tab that in. And then for the last step, you can flip the chest panel around, and there we have Blurr in his really cool looking robot. Here we have Blurr in his really cool looking robot mode. Let's take the details. I do apologize if the background is, of course, just blurring out the entire figure, because there is a lot of white and a lot of blue on this figure. I hope you can see all the details. Starting at the top, of course, with the head sculpt, we have that nice and classic antenna thing for his head, of course. Lots of really nice angles, some nice white for the face, and of course, everything else is pretty much blue. Some nice silverish blue for the eyes. You can actually pick out sort of a smirk. Getting to the arms, lots of really nice spikes and kind of electronic detail on it. Looks super cool. Some nice silverish blue there. This whole rocket booster section. The hand is done in blue. Some nice dark blue for the forearm. Getting to the chest, nice combat symbol done in red with some transparent blue plastic for the chest. Some nice white. Some more darker blue for the inside, near the armpit, I would say. Getting to the crotch, mostly done in that white. Getting to the legs, some nice lighter blue, some white and darker blue, and some more of that lighter blue for the feet. And of course on the back, overall pretty clean. We have the car pieces and the front car piece there. And the legs, pretty much clean. A little bit of a backpack, but overall looks quite nice. And I have to say, they did a pretty good job with all the joint tightness on this figure, because I know a lot of people had really big problems with the 86 and the Shatterglass Blurr with the little back panels. They would usually be very loose and flap everywhere. Mine are still a little bit loose, but they actually stay in place. My Shatterglass one, if you barely even touched it or just set it down, those panels would just flap down. It was really annoying. So this one is much better in that area. Let's now get into articulation. So for the head, it can move left to right. Of course, it can move up and down. The arm can move out, and of course there is a swivel. There is also an elbow bend. There is also a swivel here. And as for the hand, if you want articulation, you do have to disconnect this connection here, so you can rotate this left to right. As for more articulation, there is a waist swivel. The leg can kick that far out, that far forward, that far back. There is also a knee bend and a swivel. Also, of course, an ankle pivot. So just make sure if you want that hand articulation, you do have to move this down. If you keep this separate, it will not work, and you could actually break something, maybe even snap off that tab, so make sure you move that down. But overall, pretty good articulation otherwise, exact same as the Blurr that I have, and of course, if you have the 86 one, the exact same as that as well. Let's now get into the accessories. So he does come with the blaster, which is overall pretty simple. Here's where I have a problem with the color. I kind of wish it wasn't the same as the hand, and that's really just with any figure. I really hope and want the accessories not to be the same color as the hand, because it kind of looks, everything really just blends together, and there's a lot of the same blue on his shoulder and his feet, so I kind of wish maybe they used like a white or maybe a silver for the blaster. I think that would have been nice, or maybe even like a red from the Autobot symbol would have been cool, because then it could be more distinct from the rest of the figure, but that's just my opinion. Of course, you can just insert those like that, and he can have his welder tool. I think the welder tool is kind of weird for this figure. I think it worked for the 86 one, of course, because that was a reference to the movie. This one's an IDW Blurr. I don't really think in the comics he ever uses it. Of course, correct me if I'm wrong. I've actually never even read one of the IDW comics ever, so I could be wrong, but that I've heard from reviews and, you know, just talking about this figure, I don't think he's ever used this. So I think maybe we could have just only had the blaster or just gotten a new accessory for this exclusive figure, but that's just my opinion. But overall, that looks pretty cool. Let's now get in one quick mold comparison. Here he is with the Shatterglass Hasbro Pulse exclusive Blurr. So now to similarities, of course, same accessories, and of course the legs are pretty much the exact same front and back. And of course the waist is pretty much the exact same thing. And of course the chest is the same thing. Head sculpt, of course, completely different. And the whole, of course, arm and hand design, as you can see, of course, a little bit covered from the accessories, is the exact same. Getting down to, of course, some more differences, the whole shoulder section is pretty different, and the entire back panel here is pretty different in sculpt. Of course, you have this whole wheel section and pointed section, and of course, this one's a little pretty much smaller and more simple. Also, the booster section is there, but it's a lot more chunky and clunky there, as well as this entire back panel is completely different in sculpt, but they do end up pretty much in the same place. And if you wanted to see, of course, the back of the legs, pretty much the exact same. But that's pretty much it for similarities and differences. There is quite a few similarities and quite a few differences. Probably of the two, I would have to say I like that one more. I really do like the Shattered Glass Blurr head sculpt. It looks amazing. It's just a lot of his joints are very, very loose, and what really doesn't make sense to me is this whole back panel is actually extremely loose, considering it's actually smaller than this Blurr. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot more heft, but it actually stays in place better. So I don't really think that makes much sense. If these joints were just a little bit tighter, it honestly might be my favorite over the IDW Legacy Velocitron Blurr, but that is just my opinion. Let's now get into one last quick Velocitron comparison. Now for one last final comparison, here we have all 5 deluxes of the Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 collection, and of course there is 3 figures left: Road Hauler, Override, and Scourge, which I should be getting in the next few weeks, so make sure you stay tuned for those reviews, and maybe I might do like a live unboxing or something like that to celebrate my 500 subscribers. I'm almost super close to 500 subscribers, so thank you so much for all the support recently. It does mean a lot, and of course I'm very close, so if you could subscribe to my channel to get to 500 subscribers, that would be awesome. But of course, these figures so far in the Velocitron line have been really good. Yes, there's a few there I wouldn't say as interesting as others, like Clampton is just a direct repaint of the Kingdom Red Alert sort of sideswipe as well, so not the most interesting, but actually a pretty good figure. Definitely probably the highlights out of this wave so far probably have to be Cosmos, Blurr, and Burnout. Yes, it does leave 2 that are just a little bit not as interesting, but I would say still worth the pickup. Let me know in the comment section down below the 2 favorite figures of the Velocitron line so far. Even if you don't have them, just let me know by pictures, reviews, or anything. Which one are your favorite 2? I'm thinking most people probably say Cosmos and maybe Burnout. But that's pretty much it for the comparisons. Let's now get into the final. Now for the final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Velocitron Speedia 500 Collection Deluxe Class Blurr. I think overall this figure is actually really good. I love all the Cybertronian details and spikes on this figure. Actually looks super futuristic and good. Love the head sculpt. The accessories are probably my least favorite part about this figure. Yes, it is just a direct repaint, redeco of the original Studio Series 86 Blurr, so it's not surprising at all that they're the same accessories. I just really don't like the color of them because they really blend in with the rest of the figure. There's a lot of blue on the shoulders, the hands, and the legs, so it really just kind of all blends together. So I wish maybe it was done in a different color, like the dark blue or the white. I think that would have been able to tell apart the accessories from the figure better, but that's just my opinion. Of course, posability, of course, and articulation. If you have the Shattered Glass or 86 Blurr, you know exactly how it is. Pretty good, pretty standard for a deluxe size figure. Overall, really good. Transformation-wise, of course, same as 86 and Shattered Glass. You know exactly what to do. Pretty straightforward if this is your first time transforming it. Probably after one time of looking at the instructions, you'll probably get it down. I actually really do like the alt mode. Really cool looking hovercraft. Of course, there is no wheels, but I know people have complained about that. But of course, in the original G1 show, Blurr really never rolled like a car. It was more like a hovercraft that floated above the ground. So not really a problem with me. Overall, pretty well compact. Of course, fits together well. Actually, a lot of new molded bits. It actually looks super cool. Love how you can store the accessories in the front. Actually adds a lot of length to it and actually looks super cool. I really do like how they pretty much sculpted in an entire seat for it, and of course there's no small enough figure to actually fit in there. It's actually a nice little detail that really wasn't needed. Overall, pretty good figure that I do highly recommend to get. Of course, this is an exclusive, so my advice would be check Hasbro Pulse or Walmart, and if not, if you can, look on eBay, but of course they will be overpriced because it is a Walmart exclusive. Overall, pretty good figure that I highly recommend. If you enjoyed this review, of course, make sure you like and, of course, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below, and I think that's pretty much it, so I'll see you next time.